What is licensing? And what are ways to make money from a license? A license is basically permission. So if you're thinking about how do I think about licensing, just think about permission. So for example, if somebody owns a song and the copyright to a song, and you get permission to use that song, you have a license. Likewise, if you get a license, you've gotten permission. So license can seem confusing because we have driver's license and hunting license and all these things. But the word permission helps make it a lot clearer. By the way, for a driver's license, it means you have permission to drive. For a hunting license, it means you have permission to hunt. And of course, every license has limits or a scope. So for example, if you have a hunting license, it doesn't mean you can hunt any animal you want. It doesn't mean you can shoot anywhere you want. There are still restrictions on that hunting license. Likewise, when you have a license to use a song, there are restrictions on it. So a license is simply permission to use somebody else's intellectual property. That intellectual property might be a trademark, a copyright, a patent. It could even be something else. But ultimately, a license is just permission to use somebody else's intellectual property in the specific way that is authorized by the intellectual property owner. All right, how can you limit a license? You can get extremely creative because it's just a contract. So can a license be done orally? Yes, you can give permission orally. Like let's say, for example, you know the owner of a song and you say, hey, can I have that song play at my wedding? Is that okay with you? And can we do it for no charge? And the owner says, oh yeah, sure, that's no problem. Boom, we have a license. We have an oral license. There might be restrictions on it though. And those restrictions in this scenario are you can do it at the wedding. It doesn't mean you can now re-release it and start selling it on Spotify and YouTube and as CDs. And you might say, well, how does that work if it's oral? Like a lot of times you don't sit and discuss every little detail. Like for example, if I said, hey, can I play your song at my wedding? What are all the details there? Well, we don't always have all the details, but a court will imply reasonable details. So in other words, if somebody says at my wedding, a reasonable person would probably assume that's a specific event. If you get married 5 times, it doesn't mean you get authorization at all 5 of them. Why? Because a reasonable person would probably assume it's for a specific event. And by the way, if that wedding is broadcast live and then recorded and you go on and sell the recordings, and let's say you want to sell the little clip of the music, can you do all of that? You might argue, well, hey, I got permission to do it at the wedding and they didn't ask whether it's live and they didn't ask whether I'd be selling recordings of clips later. But the court will imply reasonableness. And you might say, well, okay, how do you figure out what's reasonable? It's in the mind of the judge or the jury. So you're going to have some third party or parties, judge and jury, deciding what would a reasonable person think. So it's not whether you can argue the technicalities. If details are not either specifically discussed or expressly put in a written contract, the court will imply reasonable terms on that license. I'm Aaron Hall, an attorney for business owners and entrepreneurial companies. You can find more about me at aaronhall.com. You can get the free download we talked about earlier at aaronhall.com/free. And if you have questions to follow up from today, feel free to put them in the comments section below. I'll either address them in a future live video session, or I'll use your questions to create an entirely separate video to help you and other business owners, educating you to help make your company better and hopefully improve your success in life. It was a pleasure talking with you here today.